Right, hello YouTube, Jamie Ozzy's 252 here. Right, it's come to part number 6 now of the ill-fated maiden voyage of the RMS Titanic. So, the last time I left you, last night, on the 14th of April 1912, the RMS Titanic was in Iceberg Alley and she'd hit an iceberg. So she'd hit the iceberg on the starboard side, along the hill below the waterline. So now it's the 15th of April 1912. So now at 5 past midnight, on the 15th of April 1912, Captain Edward John Smith ordered the lifeboats to be uncovered and prepared to abandon ship. By now, many of the passengers on board the RMS Titanic were waking up because they noticed the vibration from the engines as having noticed the engine and the vibrations all of a sudden just suddenly stopped. So by now, many passengers on board the RMS Titanic, the 2,224 passengers, were slowly waking up. But the vibrations from the engines just all of a sudden just stopped. Captain Edward John Smith also approached the radio room as well, where Jack Phillips and Howard Bride were located. So he went to the radio room and told Jack Phillips and Howard Bride to start sending distress messages now to other ships that were in the area. Let the other ships know that the RMS Titanic had struck the iceberg and she was slowly sinking. But some of these distress calls were transmitted by Howard Bride and Jack Phillips put the RMS Titanic on the wrong side of the ice belt. So some of the ships were really confused to which part the RMS Titanic was in and slowly sinking. Below the decks of the RMS Titanic, at this point, water was flooding in. Water was flooding in the lower decks on board the RMS Titanic. So she slowly began to sink by the head, via the bow. One of the rooms was flooded by the water. Was the mail room. That was one room that was flooded by the water in the North Atlantic Ocean. Elsewhere on board the RMS Titanic, air could be heard inside the Titanic. And this could be heard by forcing water coming out and going inside the ship. The RMS Titanic did not have a public address system, so the stewards on board the RMS Titanic was going round. All the passengers wasn't waking up, they all went round in the cabins and knocking on the doors. Wake up! Put your lifebelts on! Well, the first class stewards were just in board of a few. Were just in charge of a few first class passengers which didn't want to wake up. But they could be heard They could be heard rushing around the Titanic, telling people to wake up and put the lifebelts on. So by this point, the Titanic was slowly sinking. Second and third class passengers were basically left to their own devices. So the stewards weren't doing the second and third class passengers, so they were allowed to themselves. So they could get the ready themselves if they wanted to survive this sinking. Around midnight, stewards on board the RMS Titanic was going around the first class promenade deck and all the cabins in the first class, ordering the passengers to wake up and put the lifebelts on. Though again, many of the first class passengers took this as a joke, but this was no joking matter. The RMS Titanic was sinking, so this was no joking matter. Some of the passengers on board the RMS Titanic was in the forward well deck, playing a game of football with the ice falling off the berg onto the forward well deck, which was here. So some of the passengers were playing a game of football with the ice chunks that came off the iceberg in the forward well deck. One of the passengers, Lawrence Beasley, said the sound on board the RMS Titanic and people rushing around was a harsh and defending boom. That made the conversations between the passengers and the stewards really, really difficult. The noise was so loud that the crew had to use hand signals to direct all the passengers over because they couldn't hear them. Because the noise was so loud on board the RMS Titanic after she hit the iceberg. So they had to use hand signals to direct all the passengers. The RMS Titanic had 20 lifeboats on board. There was 16 altogether, and the other 4 were collapsible lifeboats. The collapsible lifeboats were stored on the deck near the funnels. Collapsible way and collapsible B lifeboats. Captain Smith was an experienced captain with a seaman because all the years he did at sea. So he was really experienced captain in situations like this. Fourth Officer Boxall was told by Captain Edward John Smith at midnight that the RMS Titanic would eventually sink. So this was reported at midnight by Captain Edward John Smith on board the RMS Titanic, which told 4th Officer Boxall that the ship would sink. While Quartermaster George Rowe was absolutely unaware of this disaster. He was unaware of it all because nobody mentioned anything to him, so he was unaware of all this disaster, what was going on. Only one lifeboat trip was carried out on board the RMS Titanic, so half the passengers didn't even hear because the smoke coming from the funnels, letting all the smoke and steam out from the furnaces. But no lifeboat drills have been sorted on board the RMS Titanic since Southampton trials, the sea trials. By around 20 past midnight, 40 minutes after the collision with the iceberg, the loading of lifeboats was underway, and the Titanic was beginning to slowly sink by the bow. And Second Officer Charles Lloyd was doing hand signals. Was doing hand signals to the Titanic's passengers, like saying, "That's it, come towards me." And he would cut both hands over Captain Smith's ear, saying to Captain Smith, hadn't we better get the women and children into the boat, sir? And he had to do that because of the sheer racket what was bellowing from the RMS Titanic's funnels, with all the steam that was coming out. So it was a hell of a racket on board. On board the decks of the RMS Titanic. So not all passengers heard the demands. And that's when Charles Lloyd had to cut both hands over Captain Smith's ear and said to Captain Edward John Smith, hadn't we better get the women and children into the boat, sir? And Captain Smith ordered for William Murdoch and Charles Lloyd to load the women and children into the boats first. William Murdoch was in. Charles Lloyd took charge of all the lifeboats. Took charge on all the lifeboats on the port side. So Charles Lloyd took charge of all the lifeboats on the port side on the RMS Titanic. And William Murdoch, First Officer William Murdoch, took charge of all the lifeboats on the starboard side. So there was two officers in charge of loading of the lifeboats with the passengers. So with this underway, all the women and the children were loading into the lifeboats. But not all the lifeboats were loaded with the maximum capacity of 70 people. At 1:15 in the morning, On April the 15th, 1912, lifeboat number 7 was launched from the Titanic and rode away from the RMS Titanic. And an estimated 28 passengers were on board this lifeboat number 7 that rode away from the Titanic. So 28 passengers out of 70 people were on board this lifeboat number 7. So this was about half the lifeboats wanted to carry. So 28 passengers were on board the lifeboat number 7 at 1:15 that was rowed away from the RMS Titanic. At this point she was really sinking, singing really slowly. Despite a capacity of 65 to 70 men, that they could be loaded up. Lifeboat number 6 was next to be launched from the starboard side where William Murdoch was. Lifeboat number 6 was lowered down. And this was lowered at 1:55 in the morning. And this lifeboat also had 28 passengers on board as well. This lifeboat also had 28 passengers on board this lifeboat as well. So this was another one that was not reached its full capacity. Among these in lifeboat number 6 was the unsinkable Margaret Molly Brown. She was in lifeboat number 6. But all the lower passengers, some of them couldn't get to the top of the decks because there was that many people on board. There was 2,225 passengers on board the RMS Titanic on this maiden voyage. So some of them got trapped below decks with the rising water and even perished. And there was one passenger on board the RMS Titanic. Was a steward called Frederick Dent Ray. He was narrowly escaped getting swerved in the water because of the cabin wall collapsed around him. And by this point, Titanic was still slowly sinking, and the stewards on the bridge set off fireworks and stress rockets, letting other people know that they were sinking. Now these were seen by the SS Californian because they noticed a large vessel with lights on just in front of them, but the mirage, the cold weather mirage, could have made it difficult to see them. But the superbat Titanic's size could be seen in the distance. At 20 past 1 in the morning, boiler room number 4 began flooding from the plates below deck. And these had continued to keep the lights on for goodness how long. So the Titanic was still sinking at this point. said lifeboats were lowered every few minutes when the RMS Titanic sinking. So lifeboats were launched every few minutes. And there still wasn't at the maximum capacity. Yeah, there was load away every few minutes from either side of the RMS Titanic, the starboard side and the port side. By 1:20, the Titanic this was an hour into the sinking, right? The Titanic was really, really low in the water. The launching of these last lifeboats on board the RMS Titanic happened at 1:30. The launching of the last lifeboats on board the RMS Titanic. So these were the last lifeboats to be launched from the RMS Titanic in the sinking. And by this point, Titanic's bow was so low in the water, and the stern was rising up, so like that. But the last remaining lifeboats were filled much more to capacity than the first few lifeboats that was launched. So the last remaining lifeboats were filled up to much more capacity what they wanted. At 1:40, 20:02, lifeboat number 2 was launched. Was launched as well. While it was still at deck level, it was launched. But at this point, the Titanic was so low in the water, and its first funnel had gone, crushing some passengers below it. So the first funnel, which is this one here, when the things that was on it on board the ship totally snapped, and the first funnel began to bend and snap off, and it crushed some of the passengers that were swimming away from the RMS Titanic. The first funnel crushed a load of passengers and killed them. The last boat to be launched was Collapsible D. That was the last lifeboat to be launched on this fateful night. By this point, Captain Smith had done it. Did his last round on the boat deck. This was the last time Captain Edward John Smith was seen, because he went down with his ship. Around quarter past two in the morning, the Titanic was so low in the water. So and the strain from this massive ocean liner couldn't cope any longer. So what happened? She split straight down the middle. Straight down the middle, just forward of the third funnel. That's where the RMS Titanic split in half. So the stern fell back level. And also the Double bottom was the only thing holding these two parts together. But from there, the Titanic split in half from there. And literally, the bow broke away from the stern. So literally, when the bow the bow was going down at rapid pace, and the stern was just hovering in the water, because the stern was more buoyant, because she wasn't taking on any water yet. Another minute, the ship, before the breakup, the RMS Titanic's lights flickered. And then eventually all the lights gave up, plunging the RMS Titanic into darkness. And when the RMS Titanic was in darkness, this is when the breakup happened, just forward of the fair funnel. So she split when the lights were out. And by this point, at 2:20 AM, the Titanic floundered and sank. So once this magnificent ocean liner, at 2:20 AM on the 15th of April 1912, was gone from view, and she could no longer be seen. So RMS Titanic was gone at 20 past 2, so she wasn't around anymore, she was gone. And then at around 4 AM, the RMS Carpathia made its way to where the lifeboats was. Because at this point, Charles Lloyd was waving green flares to tell the RMS Carpathians to come towards them. So out of the 2,224 passengers on board the RMS Titanic, only 705 survivors survived this really sad sinking of the RMS Titanic. So just after 4 AM, the RMS Carpathia arrived on scene to collect the survivors from the Titanic disaster. And then also she was taking on all the passengers, 705 of them, onto the RMS Carpathia. And by this point, the RMS Carpathia, after she loaded all the passengers up, she made her way to New York. So that was the story of the ill-fated maiden voyage of the RMS Titanic. So let's not forget, people, out of the 2,224 souls that was on board the RMS Titanic on that fateful night, only 705 survived this disaster. All the rest of the passengers either died, went down with the ship, or even perished in the cold water of the North Atlantic Ocean. So with this done, the RMS Carpathia loaded the last survivors for the Titanic disaster and made her way to New York, where she docked on the morning of the 17th of April 1912, with passengers around as well as the Titanic passengers. So 112 years have passed since the RMS Titanic made a maiden voyage between Southampton and New York, and tragically didn't make it, because she hit the iceberg and slowly sank. So she hit the iceberg at 23:40 on the 14th of April 1912, and by 20 past 2 the following morning, the RMS Titanic sank below the North Atlantic Ocean and waves, and she was never seen again. So 112 years have passed since this maritime disaster, and this was the deadliest maritime disaster in all of the maritime history. So let's not forget all this disaster what happened aboard the RMS Titanic on a ill-fated maiden voyage between